is the ELECTile Dysfunction Podcast with Ashton Cohen.
You legalize drugs. Well, who's going to start getting into that market as much as they can, if at least nothing else to undercut in the black market, undercut the market price? I mean, the cartels are not amateurs. You want to talk about the ultimate capitalists? They have managed to satisfy the market desires of people who want to use banned or controlled substances by creating not only an agriculture and manufacturing network, but a transportation, an international transportation and sales distribution network. And they're making money hands over fist. We're not talking about people who are dumb. We're not talking about people who are stupid. We're talking about extremely intelligent individuals who are in it for making money, and they just happen to also be ruthless and very violent. We tend to think that ruthless and violent people somehow are not smart. But you can be all of those things.
Absolutely.
Ruthless, violent, bloodthirsty, and also very smart and capable. And the cartels are. So all we'll do is facilitate their entry into whatever drug market exists because of legalization, my opinion.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. They're like a evil Amazon in a sense, right? I mean, completely vertically integrated.
Great way to put it.
Let's talk about something more uplifting then. With respect to your experience with the WMD units, can you tell me a little bit about your background in there? And then I want to ask you a few questions.
Yeah, after an initial headquarters assignment in the counterintelligence division of the FBI, I was working a certain East Asian country, working against a certain East Asian country. I was then transferred to the WMD Counterproliferation unit, and that unit focused on nation-state WMD. And primary targets were Iran, North Korea, primarily those in Pakistan, but every other country on planet Earth. But the ones who are, Pakistan has nuclear weapons,
right. Mm-hmm.
but their means of being able to employ them quickly is quite deficient, and always want to make themselves more capable of using them rapidly. And then, of course, Iran and North Korea ought to speak for themselves for anybody watching or listening as to why they're dangerous. So in that unit, we focused on, threat countries. And I was sent to the Defense Nuclear Weapons School and a bunch of other training courses to bring myself up to speed in regards to nation-state WMD. It was chemical, biological, nuclear primarily. Dirty bomb stuff is not really what we were working on. That's more of a terrorist or criminal tool, although it is a WMD. We were working on ICBM programs, nuclear weapons programs, nation-state chem bio programs. So I was eventually the acting unit chief of the WMD Counterproliferation Unit before being assigned to Central Intelligence Agency headquarters for 2 years as the senior FBI representative for WMD Counterproliferation.
What's the most overblown threat and the most underblown threat both from a geopolitical perspective in terms of what can happen around the world that would disrupt everything, disrupt our economy, disrupt our way of life, and from a U.S. sort of Western perspective?
I don't know if there's any overblown threat.
Okay.
Well, yeah, there is an overblown threat. And I'll talk about an underblown threat if I can think of one. An overblown threat is the specter of a terrorist carrying a suitcase that contained a nuclear device in it. The lone actor who's somehow it's a suitcase bomb into an American city. That is a low probability event. It's not impossible, but it is improbable. And I can't say, I'm still bound by the classification rules, so I can't describe nuclear devices, but I will just leave it at it's not impossible, but it is improbable.
Right, and there's so many variables involved in that. Is what you're getting at in terms of being able to acquire it and then store it and then transport. I mean, I've read a bit about it, and it's extremely difficult. Just all the variables involved, and all the sort of expertise you need in different sort of subject areas. So that makes sense.
And so that's overblown. I'm not sure there's an underblown threat. Well, see, again, you have a certain perspective and you look at it, and it's not. I think today, because our media coverage is so slanted towards one certain worldview, at least in my opinion, it is.
Right.
At least our national news media is, that the Iranian threat might be underblown. I believe that Iran is very close. Now, these are in relative terms. I don't mean next week, but within a couple of years of having a functioning nuclear device. And regardless of the Obama-Iran deal, regardless of Trump administration not complying with that deal, the Iranians have always had their eyes on obtaining a nuclear capability, and they're not. There's no treaty or agreement. The Obama agreement was not a treaty; it was an agreement. There's no agreement or treaty that's going to keep them from acquiring nuclear weapons. It's been on their wish list for a very long time now, and they will eventually do that. Yeah. Now, obviously, our nation and particularly Israel are working diligently against that process in Iran. Will we be ultimately successful? And I say obviously because it's been in the news. You talk about malware being inserted in Iranian programs, and I'll just let the news stories on that speak for themselves. I'm not speaking from any current personal knowledge at all, but just those things, so we can kind of see what's happening when you look at geopolitical news. Anyway, but
so you're saying you can't trust the Iranian mullahs who have killed tens of thousands of their own people to abide by an agreement? Is that your contention?
No, you can't trust them at all. And so I think that is underblown in our media because we want to applaud President Obama for making the agreement, want to trash President Trump for deciding not to comply with the agreement, want to applaud Joe Biden for considering complete U.S. compliance to that agreement. I don't think he's made that decision yet. Want to applaud these things, and there is a narrative out there that the agreement would have kept the Obama agreement would have kept the Iranians from building nuclear weapons. Yeah. Well, I mean that's fantasy.
It's absolutely a joke. No, yeah, I mean it's absolute joke. Factually speaking, absolute joke. We already the Israelis already uncovered information years ago that they were cheating the entire time. The agreement basically, to the extent was agreement, was you can monitor these facilities but not these ones. So where are you going to put it, right? And of course it's in their complete self-interest to do it because they saw what happened with Gaddafi, they saw what happened to Saddam, they saw what happened to the other Middle Eastern despots. And your assurance in terms of trying to stave off regime change from outside forces while you kill your own people, massacre them. My mom obviously is a refugee from that country. Is to have a nuclear bomb, so then people will be like, okay, Iran may be evil and all that, but they have a nuke, so there's not much we can do. And so it's completely in their interest to do it. And yeah, exactly, nothing will stop them from doing it because their own people want to overthrow them. And the only thing that would absolutely ensure that no momentum can be built from that by other Western or world powers joining their own people to overthrow them is to have a nuclear bomb, because then the calculus changes and it's like, okay, can we be on these, should we be facilitating this? Because this could lead to a nuclear explosion somewhere. So yeah, I mean, what you say is completely correct. And it's, there's been so much of the Russia coverage. And of course, I think Russia is a geopolitical foe. They always have their hand in everything. Yes. And it's in their interest, to basically stir the pot constantly, because the United States being distracted ensures that they're able to meet their, Putin's strategic objectives, and no one will stand in their way. But it's all the Russia coverage the last few years at the expense of thinking about some of these other issues is really damaging. I want to sort of segue that with the whole FBI, the recent FBI history. So you're obviously veteran there, spent decades there. So there was an interesting poll, was a couple months ago, that the FBI is viewed favorably by 78% of Democrats and 55% of Republican voters, which is unbelievable. That's a complete role reversal. It's a 23-point gap. Whereas, I'm born in the 90s. I'm old enough to remember when, all my left-wing friends were the, fuck the system kind of people, right? They were absolutely against the FBI and the CIA and any semblance of what they would consider imperialistic United States and the security apparatus that's built upon. Obviously, a huge role reversal. Not much of it is, all of it is due to the fact that the contentious relationship that resulted from Trump and the FBI, where the FBI, individuals in the FBI, like this Kevin Kleinsmith, who was just charged, altering emails in order to get FISA warrants with false information and the Steele dossier, which was complete bullshit, in order to spy on Carter Page and essentially spy on the Trump administration. And so a lot of people on the right, which is why you had this decrease in support, think that the FBI has become overly politicized and is no longer a impartial, gilded entity that it once was. How do you perceive that as someone who was in the force for 20 years? Now you're out, you're a private citizen. What do you make of sort of the leadership ranks and your whole opinion on that?
Well, I think it's a logical reaction to the Crossfire Hurricane or the Trump-Russia investigation that went on. It's logical to believe that the FBI is not as credible as it once was. I can tell you as a retiree that when I retired, it was like, ooh, you were an FBI agent? Now it's like, oh, you were an FBI agent. Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, it's changed dramatically.
Absolutely.
And the whole case, the Russia investigation, it really was about 8 or 9 people who were in key positions who caused it to happen. There's 13,500 FBI special agents. There are another 22,000, I think, support employees. The whole FBI has been tarnished by about 8 or 9 people, and their apparent partisan point of view and shepherding this investigation forward. And it's not a good. It certainly wasn't good for the Bureau's reputation. It's going to be very difficult to repair that in the minds of the American people. And but the good side of the story is, again, we're talking about 8 or 9 people, not 800 or 900 people, 8 or 9 people, starting with Andrew McCabe as the deputy director, and then the other personalities who make up that story. And I can't get into their hearts and minds, but if you just take what's at face value, like Peter Strzok, who I have worked with personally on one occasion, and Lisa Page, his girlfriend, who worked in the FBI General Counsel's office. There are text messages back and forth, about not letting Trump win the presidency. We won't. Well, that's not the province of the Bureau to decide who gets elected or not. And it seemed like they tried to derail the campaign. And the fact that an affidavit was taken to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court when it was known, at least by the time of the second renewal, that the information that was used as probable cause predicate, namely the Steele dossier, was all a partisan hack job piece. And it continued to push that FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act surveillance package, through the DOJ and to the court is really, to me, that's a dereliction of duty, all capital letters.